Hello, this is a video being recorded as a summer reading program for the Spartanburg County Public Libraries. My name is Rachel Copel, and if you watched my last videos, you know that I am your local government documents librarian here in Spartanburg. Again, government documents are any book or pamphlet or poster published by an official branch of the United States or South Carolina government, and we have a small collection here in Spartanburg that anyone can feel free to come in and browse. Now, the spirit of government documents is to make government information freely available to all our citizens for whatever you need it for. But I will be the first person to admit that some of it doesn't feel very useful. We have a lot of volumes that are long collections of statistics, of data, census data, and while that's useful to some people, it's not usually something you're going to pick up and browse through. That said, it's my feeling that there are some gems in our government's documents collection, and I want to show you some of my favorites today. Sometimes, instead of being a long list of statistics, it's something more like the South Carolina Alligator Hunting Guide, published by the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. You may not have been aware that your local library has all the answers to your questions about hunting alligators than you could possibly want. We get a new one of these every year. They don't change much, but we do occasionally update our alligator hunting rules, so be sure to keep up with those. Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Agriculture publish a lot of my favorites. They come out with materials that are, in my opinion, legitimately interesting, and a lot of times they look nice too. Another one from the Department of Natural Resources that I like to flip through is the South Carolina Beachcomber's Guide. This one is really pretty. It is essentially a guide to all of the animals and plants you might see if you were wandering our beaches here in South Carolina. It's divided into different sections with lots of information and useful pictures so that you can identify what you see. If you're interested in picking something up, you can get to know what it is, if it's dangerous or not, if it's endangered or not, and you shouldn't touch it. Of course, the best section, in my opinion, is miscellaneous beach artifacts. For any time you see something that makes you say, "What on earth is that?" Here's another one that we get that I'm pretty fond of. This is the South Carolina Wildlife Magazine. We get 6 of these a year. They're published every 2 months, and it is really a variety show collection of news and information about South Carolina flora and fauna, of advances in science, news presses from organizations involved in tracking and preservation in our local parks. It has advice for preservation in your backyard, educational materials, pieces about specific parks and rangers. To me, it just really scratches the itch that is still left in me from reading Ranger Rick as a child. That's really what it reminds me of. These I actually keep with the magazines instead of with the rest of the government documents because, I mean, in my opinion, it's just as good as the rest of them. Moving on to agriculture, probably my favorite government publishing house. This one is a brand new one. This is the first edition, and we just got it this month. It's called Shop Local South Carolina, and what it is really a magazine, sort of a browsing magazine, of different places making food, baking treats and ingredients in South Carolina, places owned and operated in South Carolina, that you can go and check out their goods. It's sorted into sections like seasoning and sauces, different services, sweets and snacks. There's an entire grits section. They've got some food production advice in the back, where to apply to be a registered food producer yourself, so you might be able to get yourself into the next one. Also from agriculture, this is just a really handy little thing. It is a pamphlet of the South Carolina Association of Farmer Markets, all the registered farmer markets in our state. They've got contact information, addresses, locations, hours for all of them, as well as some basic information about food growing in South Carolina, what season things grow in, what we can grow here, where you can go for different kinds of produce. If you tend to travel around a lot, it might be worth a look. Let me do one more foodie thing before I make myself move on. This one, I think I've said this 3 times, but this one is legitimately one of my favorites, and it is actually a map. This is by the Satisfy Your Thirst map. It was actually published by Discover South Carolina, which is our local tourism initiative. And this is a map of our state with something really special marked. It is our local breweries, wineries, distilleries, places that make specialty beverages, mapped and categorized for the entire state. I have to say, I think you could have the best state road trip ever with this thing, but you would have to really think about who's driving before you got started. All of those have been documents published by the South Carolina state government, and I'm partial to them in a big way. A lot of times our federal documents feel a little drier. They're the important things we have, atlases, censuses, statistics. But even so, there are a couple that I'm still willing to call my favorites. One of them, because it's just a lovely little publication. I'm happy we made these, I'm happy we have these. These are the dryly named civics flashcards. But what they actually are a teaching tool for people taking their naturalization test to become U.S. citizens. They're also excellent in a civics classroom. It's 100 cards with different questions. They are the exact questions that are asked on a naturalization test. And if you've been a United States citizen your whole life, I suggest flipping through them because they could stump you a few times. Here's one that I had to really think about myself. This is question number 72. Name one war fought by the United States in the 1800s. It's got 4 different answers on the back: the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, or the Spanish-American War. So if you thought any of those, you got it right. There are 100 of them, and I have to tell you, that's not the hardest one in the box. I recommend giving them a look just in case you're wondering, could I pass that test myself? I've got one more for you. Those civics flashcards were published by the Department of Homeland Security. This last one is published by the department that makes by far the best documents, which is NASA. Our National Aeronautics and Space Administration, of course, gets to only publish the fun things. This is their Journey to Mars, which is NASA's plan for putting humans on Mars, which they published. I'm not sure what to say about that. It's NASA's plan for putting humans on Mars, to make a human civilization on Mars, which they published. Come check it out. That's all I can say. There's lots to learn. Those were some of my favorites, so hopefully you can see why I do truly believe that there are interesting finds in our government documents collection. Feel free to come in anytime and browse, and maybe you'll find some of your own. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.